Good evening. Our work last night was quite a drill in the subject of treatment, infinite way treatment. And regardless of how high you may ever rise in consciousness, regardless of how spiritual you may believe that you become, regardless of what degree of realization you ever attain, never forget that you will not outgrow the three principles, nor will you ever get to a place where life will flow through grace without consciously remembering those three principles. The reason is that there is a world, a universal mesmerism always taking place, which is the universal belief in two powers, good and evil, and coming to our eyes and to our ears every day are appearances and suggestions, temptations to accept two powers. And unless we consciously remember that there is only one power, God is that power, we will sooner or later yield to the temptation of two powers, or two beings, or two laws. Something or other will tempt us. Even the Master, when he was a master, had to face three temptations, major temptations. And so we, even though we may not expect to be masters, yet if we do become masters, let us remember we will still be faced with the temptation to believe in two powers, good and evil. Therefore, it requires praying without ceasing to keep oneself away from that. Now, a few months ago, one of our large foundations in the States gave an award of about 300,000 guineas to a group of scientists to do research work, to learn the nature of matter. And I'm going to tell you the nature of matter for a lot less tonight. I'm not going to charge that much. In fact, I might almost give it to you for nothing. Mind is matter. Mind is the essence and substance which appears to you as matter or form or effect. Mind is the substance of which matter is formed. Mind is the law unto all matter or form. Mind is the principle, the life, the essence, the substance. I was going to say cause, but cause would really indicate an effect. And in this case, cause and effect are exactly one and the same. I can give you one illustration of that. Water and ice and steam. All of these have the same essence and substance. 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen. This is called water. But it is also steam and it is also ice. All 3 are just different levels or vibrations or forms or effects of one essence. 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen. And so in this same manner, mind is the basic substance. Matter is the name given to mind when it is in visible form. Now, mind appears as many forms. This is one of them. Flesh. Blood is another. Bone is another. Hair is another. But every bit of this is the visible mind, or mind made visible, mind as specific form. And mind in one form is flesh, and another it is bone, gristle, blood, hair, skin. But the substance or essence is mind. Whoever it was that said thoughts are things was almost right. Almost. It isn't thoughts that are things, it is mind. Mind really is things. Thoughts is but one of the things that mind is. Mind functions as thought. Mind appears as thing. And on this level of what we call the 2nd chapter of Genesis world, mind is the essence. Now, when you realize that, and you take a secret that has been known throughout all ages, but was lost until this past century in the Western world. It never was quite lost in the Eastern world. But although it was known in the Eastern world, it wasn't practiced. And even though it is now known in the Western world, it isn't practiced. That is, there is only one mind. The world at large doesn't know this. The medical world doesn't. The world of psychiatry and psychology doesn't know this. That is why they continue to fail in their work. They haven't discovered the basic secret of mind. But metaphysicians do know this. The metaphysicians of all schools, of all approaches, know, and I think the basis of all of them is that there is only one mind, but none of them practice it. Because when it comes down to actual practice, there's a divine mind and there's a mortal mind and a human mind. And while the claim or the original teaching was that there is one mind, yet always the practitioner looks at your mind to see what's wrong with you. But actually, it is true that there is only one mind, and that mind is the mind of individual being. It is your mind and my mind. There is only one mind in this room. Now you may wonder, why is it that we think differently? Why is it that we have different thoughts? Why are we not all thinking alike if we have the same mind? And there is where the world's troubles begin. There is only one mind, and it is unconditioned. It is neither good nor bad. It has no qualities of good or of evil. It is an unconditioned mind. It is a state of being, not good and not bad. It is like life itself. There can't be good life and bad life. There can only be life. There can only be mind, but there cannot be good mind and bad mind. There cannot be intelligent mind and ignorant mind. There cannot be healthy mind and diseased mind, for mind is unconditioned. Therefore, mind as body is unconditioned. And therefore, body is neither well nor sick, tall nor short, thin nor fat. Body is as unconditioned as the mind, which is the essence of its form. But in the second chapter of Genesis, we ate of the tree. We ate of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And so we accepted into mind the conditioning, the good and the evil. And therefore, we are showing forth the fruitage of that tree of good and evil in having good experiences and bad, in having healthy ones and sick ones, in having rich ones and poor ones. We are showing forth the fruitage of that fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Then mind and body, being unconditioned, are a state of absolute being, absolute perfection, until we accept into thought the belief of good and evil. Having done that, we show these forth in our experience. Now, human experience is the perfect mind which you are, made manifest as perfect being and body, but influenced now by this fruit that we've eaten, this knowledge of good and evil. Now I will ask you to remember this. Since there is only one mind, this belief of good and evil is not yours. Never let anyone blame you for any of the evil in you or praise you for any of the good in you. For this belief of good and evil is not of you. It is this universal belief which we call the belief of good and evil. Not your belief. The belief was here before you were born, before you were thought of. This belief was here before your parents or your grandparents. Therefore, this is not your belief. This is the belief. the universal belief, which through ignorance we accepted upon our conception. From the moment of conception on, we accepted this belief of two powers, good and evil, and therefore we have experienced good and evil. Now then, human experience is made up of good and evil because it is made up of that belief of good and evil accepted by us. To return to the Father's house and once more become the Son of God, it is necessary that we individually, no one can do this for us, this is an individual experience, we must give up the belief in good and evil. We must give up the belief in two powers. It is a conscious activity of your consciousness, and it can only be done by you. The effect of the belief of good and evil in the form of a sin or a disease or a lack can be overcome by your practitioner or teacher, but since you still have the belief of good and evil, you are bound to sin again and have a worse thing come upon you. In other words, as long as you do not individually, specifically and consciously eliminate from your thought this belief of good and evil, no matter how many times you're healed and no matter how many things you're healed of, there will always be something else, because behind it is that which produces the evil in your life, the belief in good and evil. Now, the practical application of that is this. When you are faced with a problem, physical, mental, moral, financial, or human relationships, at any level, you must first remember that the substance of this universe is mind, pure mind, unconditioned mind, mind that is neither good nor evil. It is pure, immortal being, pure, immortal essence, substance, reality, and its formations likewise are unconditioned, because they are mind itself appearing as form, appearing as infinite form. And the only reason there is a claim of discord is this belief of two powers, this universal belief. Never blame your patient, never blame your relative, never blame the man in prison. Always remember you are dealing with an impersonal, universal belief in two powers. Mind, unconditioned, infinite, immortal, eternal mind is the substance of all form, all formation, all effect, whether appearing as body, tree, plant, animal, vegetable, mineral. Mind is the essence, the substance, unconditioned, meaning neither good nor evil, and having no qualities of good or evil, just unconditioned, pure mind, is the substance of all that is. And all that is as unconditioned as the mind which is its base. Therefore, we are dealing with a universal belief in two powers. But being impersonal, it is a belief without a believer. It is the devil tempting the master and being rejected, therefore left powerless. If this were not the truth, it would be impossible for our state of consciousness to produce changes in what is called the material universe. Now, since all of you, or nearly all, have actually witnessed metaphysical and spiritual healings, you do know that a practitioner that may be anywhere from 1 mile to 10,000 miles away from the patient may yet reduce a fever, remove a lump, restore wasted lungs, restore hearing, eyesight. You know these things beyond all doubt because you have witnessed it, and in some cases you've experienced it, and in some cases you have been the means through which such healing work has been done. And therefore you do know that when you attained an inner stillness and a realization of God's allness, the conditions of body changed. You may even have had experiences, as many have, with automobiles, airplanes, in which something went radically wrong, and yet because of the right realization, the car, the plane, was able to keep going until a right time. Now, your consciousness of this truth is a law of harmony. And therefore, if you were called upon to help someone in a fever, and you were to realize that mind, unconditioned mind, mind that had neither good nor evil, was the substance of all form, and that this universal belief in two powers, good and evil, was not operative because it was impersonal, without person. It was the arm of flesh or nothingness. And that fever disappeared, you would then know that your consciousness of one power, which really is a consciousness of no power, really produced healing work and was the law of harmony. And you would see then that by mind, your mind, functioning in truth, producing an effect on what we call body, matter, you know then that the substance of mind and the substance of matter is one and the same. That's why mind can affect matter. That's why truth in consciousness can affect matter. That is why when mind, which of itself is not conditioned, but when mind is imbued with truth, it becomes a law of harmony unto all effect. But when mind becomes imbued with hate, fear, envy, jealousy, malice, lust, you know right well that someone out here feels that if they come into your presence. You know that. You yourself have felt uncomfortable in the presence of some people. And you knew that you were just responding to something going on within their mind, within their thought. Mind itself is unconditioned. The human race has accepted the belief of both good and evil, and then taking the good into their mind, they produce a good effect. Taking the evil into their mind, they produce an evil effect. That is why you now have books over here telling you about the man who conducted experiments with plants, and how some of his people, working with good thoughts in their mind, made the plants grow beyond their normal growth, and other people, working with wrong thoughts in their mind, withered and destroyed the plants. Evidently, mind itself was pure and unconditioned, and somebody made a power out of good thoughts, and because they accepted that belief, it was so unto them. For there is neither good nor bad, but thinking makes it so. And so, by accepting the belief that good thoughts are power, they made it so. The other people, accepting bad thoughts as power, they made it so. You come along and nullify both by knowing that neither good thoughts nor bad thoughts are power, for mind is unconditioned. It is itself infinite purity, and so are all its forms. And so you nullify both the power of good thoughts and the power of bad thoughts, and what do you have left? My thoughts. For my thoughts are not your thoughts. Not even your good thoughts can be my thoughts. My peace give I unto you, not as you would, not by your good or your evil. My peace transcends the good and the evil. Why? My peace is unconditioned, eternal, immortal being. My thoughts are not your thoughts, because my thoughts are neither good nor evil. My thoughts are truth. Who would say that 2 times 2 is 4 is good? It isn't good, it just is. It just is. Like it or not like it, it still is. And so God's thoughts are neither good thoughts nor bad thoughts. God's thoughts are truth. But truth is immortal, eternal, and cannot be affected by good or evil. It always is maintaining itself. And when you understand the nature of mind appearing as form, mind unconditioned by good or evil, you will then have the body, which is neither good nor evil, but which is just body, functioning as bodies were meant to function. Now you can't say that health is good, and you shouldn't say that ill health is bad, because thinking so can make it so in your experience. What you can believe, you can bring into truth. With what measure of faith you look into it, that's the way you bring it to you. But don't think that faith is good. Faith isn't good. Faith has wrecked more people than it's ever saved. And always for the same reason. Faith is not based on, I don't like the word knowledge, on truth. No one has faith that 2 times 2 are 4. No one. No one. You know it or you don't know it. When you know it, there's no faith involved. It is so. You don't have faith that you're living. You are living, and that's all there is to it, and there's no faith about it. And I don't think if you lost that faith it would do you any harm. Except, of course, to make you hard to live with. A man came into my office one day and asked if I could prove to him that there was a God. I said, "Oh, you mean by that you're an agnostic?" "Well, yes. I can't believe there is one, but I'm willing to have it proven." "Well," I said, that all depends on you. I'm going to ask you one question. If you answer it correctly, I can prove to you there's a God, but if you don't answer it correctly, I'll have to ask you to excuse me. I said, "Are you living?" He said, "I don't know." Said, "That's what I thought. You ought to apply for mental treatment." But of course the fact that he didn't know he was living, or didn't believe he was, or didn't have faith that he was, really didn't change the fact that he's living. So it is. Whether or not we have faith in anything doesn't change a thing. But an awareness of truth, that is quite different. Now, if there is someone in this room who has never witnessed the healing of a cold or grip or flu or pneumonia or fever, or the reduction of lumps, for them to have faith that there is some power that would do it wouldn't be too bright, in my opinion. It would be a faith based on nothing, based on ignorance. But for those of you who have witnessed these metaphysical and spiritual healings, you would no longer say that you have faith. You have something more than faith. You have knowledge. You have conviction. You have an awareness of the truth because you've experienced it. And what you've experienced you really know. Now, once, and of course you see the reason you are here in this room listening to this is that you were drawn here to hear it. Therefore, it is natural that each one of you has at least a feeling of the rightness of it, even if you haven't yet the knowledge or conviction. That again is not asking you to have faith. You can't have faith unless something within you is responding and saying, "I can believe it, though I have not yet seen it." But it's normal that you believe it, even if you haven't seen it, because you were led here to hear this very thing. You were drawn to this class for that purpose. Nobody sent for you. Nobody advertised for you. Nobody promised you anything. Therefore, you came because you were drawn by something invisible. And because you were drawn, all of the circumstances adjusted themselves in your life so that you could be here. Now, the next step for you is, since you are only going to prove this as you know the truth, this is the truth with which you are to work. Tonight, tomorrow, be consciously aware of this. Mind, unconditioned, pure, infinite, eternal mind, is the substance of being, body, business, politics, government, industry, art, science, literature. Mind, unconditioned mind, is the substance of all form. Mind is neither good nor bad. Its forms are neither good nor bad. They are unconditioned, eternal being. And that which we behold as an erroneous condition, circumstance, is not of mind or its formations, but is the universal belief in good and evil, that which we last night termed devil, carnal mind, or mortal mind. Now you see, there is no such thing as carnal mind or mortal mind. There is only one mind, and it is unconditioned. That which we give the name mortal mind to, or carnal mind, is the belief in good and evil. There is no mind called carnal mind. There is no mind called mortal mind, for there is but one mind, and it is unconditioned. It is not mortal, and it is not carnal, and it is not human. It is unconditioned. It cannot be named, or described, or analyzed. Therefore, this which we call carnal mind or mortal mind is actually a belief in two powers. Once you recognize that, you can do as the Hebrew prophet did, Hezekiah. They have only the arm of flesh, and they rested in his word. The moment you can say carnal mind or mortal mind is a belief in two powers, you can rest. Never be found fighting error, or trying to overcome it, or rise above it, or remove it. Never try to protect yourself from mortal mind or carnal mind. The nature of protective work must be your realization that there are not two powers. Because all you ever have to protect yourself from is the belief in good and evil, two powers. We call that mortal mind or carnal mind. Therefore, you must protect yourself from carnal mind or mortal mind by knowing that it isn't mind, but a belief in two powers. Then rest in that word. You see, it is really fruitless to change disease into health, knowing as we do that the very next day, week, or month, some other condition of ill health or accident is on the horizon, and if nothing else is, age is. It just looks like postponing the inevitable. But to stop this attempt to change ill health into good health, you must realize why. You're not interested in good health that can become bad health, young health that can become old health. You're interested in living a life by grace, which knows neither good health nor bad health, which knows only the continuity of harmonious being. We can think of it this way. A person with a healthy heart never thinks about a healthy heart, or even desiring one. Normally, people know nothing about their blood system and give no thought to it. They're not looking for good blood, and they're not worrying about it. They just are enjoying normalcy without taking thought. Well, the ultimate of our life is when we take no thought for our life, whether for our health or whether for our supply, and let God life live itself as our life, without our taking thought. Actually living, He performeth that which is given me to do. Can you imagine what your days would be if you awakened in the morning with that one thought, He performeth that which is given me to do? And then all through the day, regardless of what came into your experience, what problem arose, what work, what activity, that instantly would come to thought, He performeth. And then you'd rest back in that word. You would rest in that word. So it is, as you begin to perceive that mind is unconditioned, neither good nor evil, your thoughts never turn on the subject of good and evil. They're just living each circumstance of life as it comes along. It is called detachment. In other words, it doesn't mean withdrawing from the world. It means living each experience without trying to cling to it if it seems good, without trying to get rid of it if it seems evil, but going right through, being in the world, but not of it. Now, it is only when we are trying to cling to something or to somebody that we are attached, or trying to cling to a condition, or get rid of a condition. We're really attached to that which we're trying to get rid of, and that's why we can't get rid of it. We're attached to getting rid of it. To understand this principle actually takes all of the mystery out of matter. True, yes, true. There are secrets which the laboratory will reveal. There are secrets which the laboratory already has revealed about matter, secrets which mathematics revealed to Mr. Einstein. But when all of these secrets have been revealed, they will be of the very nature of mind. Now, the very moment that you think of mind in terms of your mind or my mind, you miss the point. In these experiments at Duke University with cards and dice, all of this is based on your mind, or the student's mind. Now, you know, if one of those students ever rolled the dice 100 times and came up 100 times with 7, it still wouldn't prove anything except that that one individual had conditioned himself with sufficient faith and belief in himself to do that, and it would have no effect on you or me or the rest of the world. It would prove nothing of a universal nature except that any individual can be what they want to be, and that we've known anyhow. Born in a log cabin and gets to be President of the United States. Born in a millionaire's home and ends in prison. We can be whatever we want to be. They don't need any experiments to prove that. But once they begin to understand that mind is universal and that there is only one mind, then we'll all do anything we want to do, which is in keeping with God's law, and none of us will ever do anything that we want to do unless it is in keeping with God's law. It'll never be your will or my will. It will be thy will. So it is with us that the minute we surrender personal will, it is then that this unconditioned mind can operate in us and through us. As long as we condition with our beliefs of good and evil, we will bring forth in proportion to our own belief or faith. As ye believe, so will it be done unto you. As a man thinketh in his heart, as a man becomes convinced, so is it unto him. In other words, conditioning. And you can condition yourself for good or for evil. But when you leave the realm of conditioning, you are in the realm of that mind which was also in Christ Jesus. Do you not see that he never had the will to heal anybody? It was his Father's will that was being performed through him. And it wasn't healing. It was this very act of the Master's mind. He knew that it wasn't his mind but the Father's mind, and he knew it wasn't conditioned. Therefore he could say to a blind man, open your eyes. He could say to the crippled man, what did hinder you? In other words, there was no conditioned condition in his consciousness. There was only unconditioned mind, which was neither good nor evil, neither healthy nor sick, neither poor nor rich. This is truth, but you can only make it truth in your experience by ye knowing this truth, praying it without ceasing, applying it, if you want to use that term, applying it to every appearance that faces you, on the street, at home, in school, in the factory, in the market, always keeping before you unconditioned mind is formed as unconditioned effect, and any appearance of good or evil is nothing but a belief of good and evil. And watch the beliefs of good and evil as they disappear. Even in the simplest things it applies, as well as, that's why I say healing isn't really the main thing. Healing is only one way of exhibiting it, but it shows itself forth in living. I had to go out into the suburbs today. I took a taxi cab, and when I got there, I was just about to turn away when it popped right into my head to speak to the driver and say, where do I get a taxi cab going back? Oh, he said, you can't. You're out of town and there won't be any passing here, unless you can get one from town. Oh, I said, that makes it a little difficult, doesn't it? And then he looked at me and said, oh, would you like me to come back for you? But you see, the unconditioned mind operated first to bring me to the point of asking, and then it operated second for that unconditioned mind to be his mind, be willing to come out into the suburbs to get me and bring me back. Now, it wasn't taking thought, and it wasn't giving a treatment, nor was there any conscious thought about any part of that. Every single bit of it was what you might call subconscious. In other words, it took place without conscious thought. So there must have been an unconditioned mind functioning my body to bring it back where it belonged. Every truth that was known of old was practiced and brought forth fruitage. It's been lost, rediscovered, produced more fruitage, lost. And so it's been always. Every bit of esoteric knowledge, wisdom, spiritual wisdom, was meant to fulfill the words of the Master, not because he said it, but long before he said it. The Word must become flesh. It must. Spiritual wisdom must be tangible. It must bear fruit in our earthly experience. But it can't if we don't become consciously aware of it. There is an infinity of mathematics to be known, but it will remain up here in space until an individual brings it through. There's an infinity of knowledge about aerodynamics, television, all of the discovered and undiscovered inventions and sciences and arts of the future all exist up here. They only come through in proportion as an individual opens their consciousness to them. So with spiritual truth. Esoteric truth remains something hidden behind the universe until it takes form in consciousness. Then it produces an effect in the outer world. Therefore, as ye know the truth, this truth will free you of all mortal conditions, mortal mind conditions, which means all conditions conditioned with good and evil. Every bit of truth you know will help to set you free from some phase of good or evil, until in the ascension you attain the fullness of that spiritual life in which you no longer live. Christ liveth my life. Unconditioned spirit, soul, expresses itself as my being, my body, my business, my home, my relationships. There is no good mind, there is no bad mind. There is no carnal mind and there is no mortal mind. There is only mind, unconditioned, pure. Make this your shibboleth, your password, your key there is only one mind, unconditioned, pure, eternal, infinite, and its forms and formations, manifestations, expressions, body, is as unconditioned, harmonious, and free as the mind which is its essence. And then you'll find that in all experiences you will bring forth harmony. This is not only knowing the truth, this is praying. And it is necessary to pray without ceasing. It is not only praying, it is practicing the presence of God, because it is practicing the presence of truth. It is really practicing truth. Only in proportion to your practice can the fruitage be. In a sense, it is meditating, because it is pondering truth or reality, thinking upon, cogitating, even concentrating on truth. Prayer, treatment, practicing the presence, meditation, just depending on how we approach this practice. If we sit down in a chair, close our eyes, turn inwardly, expectantly, speak, Lord, thy servant heareth, and truth comes forth, that is a communion. And that is a deeper level than meditation. Meditation, more especially contemplative meditation, is taking a truth such as that we have had tonight and pondering it, thinking about it, repeating it over and over within ourselves, rolling it under the tongue, thinking of its meaning, thinking of its application. This is a contemplative meditation. Thinking about it during the course of our day's work is a practicing the presence. It is treatment. It is praying without ceasing. And you see, this is the only way to live until such time as a transition takes place in consciousness and we pass from one state of life to another in which we no longer think or declare these things, but in which these truths keep coming through from some infinite, invisible source. We don't try to analyze why, where, how. We know that the Master said the kingdom of God is within us. We know that a mystical poet said that it is closer to us than breathing and nearer than hands and feet. We know that mystically also truth is within ourselves, and we must open out a way for the imprisoned splendor to escape. We know all this. But even after it happens, we know no more about it than that. But it does happen. But before it can happen, there must be those years of preparation, the years in which we abide in the Word and let the Word abide in us, in which we dwell in the secret place of the Word consciously. After the experience, it's done without effort, without taking thought. Now, to enlarge on that for just a moment, Please remember that life is unconditioned. There is no such thing as a new life or an old life, nor is there a diseased life or a healthy life. Life is unconditioned, and you must train yourself to get used to the idea that life is unconditioned. Don't try to condition it. Don't try to have it good or evil. Don't try to have it up or down, longer or shorter, for there is no such thing. And if you do, you are conditioning it by accepting the universal belief of good and evil. If you don't accept the belief of good and evil, your life is not conditioned. Your mind is not conditioned. When Jesus refused to accept the temptation of the devil, he was unconditioned. He was pure and perfect. Had he accepted one of those temptations, he would have been conditioned. The conditioning would have been bad too, you know that. Would have been a bad conditioning. But as long as he did not accept the temptation, he remained unconditioned.